Hey guys, it's Mark from EndAllDisease.com, and you're watching the End All Disease podcast / video series, where I create fantastic presentations, all evidence-based, and present them to you. Although I wanted to mention, in the future, there will come a time when I will actually interview people, authors and mentors of mine. But until then, I have so much information that I need to share. So I'm guessing that might be around episode 100 or something. So until then, I'm just going to keep chugging along, presenting all evidence-based information to you. And I hope you enjoy this. I put a lot of work into these presentations, but I love every minute of it. The garbage that they're teaching kids in school now is such trash. It's so useless that I've taken it upon myself to become a teacher and a writer of the curriculum itself, and I just present and teach everything that I think a human being needs to know in order to create a good life for themselves, and in order for us to create a better world for everyone. So all evidence, all empirical information is critical, and you're getting almost none of that in school, and I think it leaves pretty bad taste in kids' mouths these days about learning. It's like once they graduate, it's like, oh, thank God, finally, I don't have to learn anything ever again. Well, when you look at some of this information that I present, I'm hoping that this wakes people up to the reality that life and learning is actually really exciting, and you can't really separate the two. If you're not learning, I think you're dying. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this. I hope you enjoy all my work and you're getting lots from it. So on to this presentation. A friend of mine who I used to work with, he played professional hockey for a while. Actually, not for a while, for one game. He was in the minors and got called up for a single game in the NHL, and he ended up suffering a career-ending injury to his Achilles tendon. Got it sliced with a skate. And one of the things I asked him was about steroids in professional sports. When I asked him this, his response was, if taking steroids was the difference between becoming professional and not, would you? Whether professional athletes admit it or not, in virtually all sports, they take steroids to boost their physical performance and give them an edge over the competition. Sometimes they get caught on drug tests and are suspended from the game for a period of time, or in the case of the Olympics, have their medals revoked. What if there was a type of performance-enhancing substance that was similar in some ways, and in some ways better than steroids at boosting performance, yet it couldn't be detected on drug tests? Well, that substance does exist. It's red and near-infrared radiation, which is emitted naturally from the sun. In this video, you're going to learn how shining concentrated red or near-infrared light on your muscles before exercise can enhance virtually every aspect of your physical performance, from speed, strength, endurance, muscle size, and more. Red light therapy is so effective at athletic performance enhancement that in recent years, athletic associations worldwide have considered banning it, calling it light doping. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at EndAllDisease.com/subscribe. You'll get future presentations, and I'll get you 3 books for free to get you started. Cue the intro.
Welcome to the End All Disease podcast, where it's all about doing your own research, making your own decisions, and speaking the truth without fear of the consequences. Here's your host, Mark Sloan.
So, can red light therapy increase athletic performance? That's the subject at hand today. So let's get started. Part 1, we're going to look at endurance, the effect of red light on endurance performance. And so we're going to begin with cycling. In 2018, scientists administered red light to cyclists before exercise and tested their performance. The study found that red light therapy increased time to exhaustion in competitive cyclists, suggesting this intervention as a possible non-pharmacological ergogenic agent in cycling. In a follow-up study by the same group of researchers, red light therapy was found to decrease oxygen deficit during time to exhaustion tests in competitive cyclists. And these changes in VO2 kinetics response can be one of the possible mechanisms to explain the ergogenic effect induced by red light therapy. So for those people who don't want all the details, I've summarized every single slide at the bottom here. So the red light benefits summarized from this study are increased time until exhaustion and decreased oxygen deficit, which means your muscles begin to use oxygen more efficiently. Hence, your ability to work longer. So, improved endurance in professional cyclists. Next study. Futsal. I don't know if you've ever heard of this sport. I hadn't until I came across this study. Futsal, you may have guessed just from the name. It's actually indoor soccer, but it's like condensed. So football is an indoor variation of international soccer that's played on a smaller field with a rapid back and forth pace similar to basketball or hockey. Playing at the professional level, needless to say, requires extraordinary endurance. In 2018, Brazilian researchers, and by the way, most of these studies, I would say about 90% of at least the ones that I looked at who are investigating the effects of red light on performance enhancement are coming from Brazil. So way to go, Brazilian researchers, and anyone from there. Please continue your fantastic work. Anyway, they conducted a randomized, triple-blind, placebo-controlled trial to analyze the effects of red light therapy treatments on professional futsal players. The players were treated with red light therapy or placebo before their matches, and their performance was tested. The results showed that players who received the red light were able to stay on the field much longer, which means they had better endurance. The study concluded that light therapy significantly increased the time of staying in the pitch and had a significant improvement in all the biochemical markers evaluated. Pre-exercise therapy can enhance performance and accelerate recovery of high-level futsal players. Red light benefits. In summary, the two takeaways from this study. In futsal players, red light can increase your time until exhaustion, just like the previous study on cyclists, and it can accelerate your recovery. So if you ever do get exhausted, this will decrease the time it takes for you to recover back to the point where you can work out again. All right, next study, we're going to look at running, endurance running. Red light therapy was tested on healthy men and women going through endurance training on treadmills in a triple-blind, placebo-controlled trial in 2018. 77 healthy volunteers received light therapy before and or after each training session in a 12-week treadmill training protocol where they had 3 sessions per week. Using red light therapy before exercise can, and I quote from the study, increase the time to exhaustion and oxygen uptake and also decrease the body fat in healthy volunteers when compared to placebo. This part's amazing. Get ready for this. The study concluded that red light therapy applied before and after endurance training exercise sessions led to improvement of endurance 3 times faster than exercise only. You heard that? So if you're an endurance runner, just by applying red light therapy before and after your sessions, you can improve literally 3 times faster. If there are any champion endurance runners out there who aren't using red light therapy, their potential is likely about 3 times greater than what they're doing now. And there's still a lot of people who don't know about red light therapy. So if you are an endurance runner, you can apply this now and outshine your competition. So in summary, red light therapy benefits: 3 times increased endurance compared to people who don't use red light therapy. Next section we're going to look at, this is part 2, the effects of red light therapy on speed and strength. First, the speed aspect, which is a study that was tested on rugby players. That's the next sport we're going to look at. The effects of red light on the sprint performance of professional rugby players was tested in a randomized, crossover, double-blinded, placebo-controlled trial in 2016. The group of athletes received either red and near-infrared light or placebo before taking the Bangsbro sprint test on the training field, and the results were analyzed. So the Bangsbro sprint test is some kind of standardized sprint test, and the results were as follows. The study found that the light therapy resulted in faster running and improved recovery in the athletes. Light therapy, and I quote, significantly improved the average time of sprints, wrote the team of researchers. In summary of this study on rugby players sprinting, red light therapy can improve the speed of your running and reduce your recovery time. Next study we're going to look at is actually a review on muscle performance overall, and it does apply to endurance, but it also has crossover into other areas of athletic performance as well, but I figured it's a good spot for it. So in 2015, researchers conducted a review of the existing research on the use of red and near-infrared light for muscle performance. The time until exhaustion and the number of reps performed following light therapy were dramatically increased, they wrote. And here's a quote directly from the study. The time until exhaustion increased significantly compared to placebo by 4.12 seconds, which may not sound like a lot, but wait till you hear this second part in this quote. And the number of repetitions increased by 5.47 after phototherapy. 5.47 more reps. For anyone who does strength training, they know that that is significant. Most people don't do more than 12 reps. So that's almost a 50% increase in the amount of reps you can do. And by the way, phototherapy is the same as red light therapy. It has many names. Another one is photobiomodulation. You can call it low-level laser therapy. It all depends. So different studies call it different things. Anyways, we conclude that phototherapy with lasers and LEDs improves muscular performance and accelerates recovery, mainly when applied before exercise. Red light therapy can increase your repetitions and increase your time until exhaustion. That time until exhaustion has been in, I think, every study so far. So it's pretty well established. You know what I mean? Like, studies are never proof of something. You always have to keep an open mind. This is the kind of scientific thinking people need. However, when it is repeated over and over and over again, and with the same result, I mean, what you have is some very well established likely truth. So you can pretty much know beyond a shadow of a doubt that red light therapy increases your time until exhaustion in all sports. You could take that to the bank. Next study. This one is actually a 2016 review. And I'm not exactly sure why they even did a review a year after the other one. And I'm not sure if it's the same people. It may or may not be. But perhaps they included different studies. This particular review included 16 studies and involved 297 participants. And it's a review and meta-analysis, which looked at all existing studies on the effects of red light on muscle performance and overall exercise capacity. Parameters investigated included number of repetitions, time to exhaustion, blood lactate concentration, and lactate dehydrogenase activity. So lactate dehydrogenase, what? You might be saying? Lactate dehydrogenase is an enzyme that catalyzes the production of lactic acid, essentially, in the human and animal metabolism. So blood lactate, lactic acid and lactate are the same thing. Anyone who works out knows it's the pump that Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about. The pump. That, if you ever worked out and have had that after a pretty big set of biceps or something, you know what that does. It basically makes it so your muscle is constantly contracted. And it looks good because it's like big and it's swollen and inflamed. But that's not a healthy thing to have. And when you understand what lactate does and its role in the body, it paints a different picture. And what you realize is that the lower the lactate in the body, whether after exercise or just in general, the better. In cancer patients always have an elevated amount of lactic acid. And reducing that is one of the targets for treatment of cancer, or should be anyways. But it's actually not, because chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and surgery actually increase lactic acid. And one of the things lactic acid does is knocks out the immune system. So that's never a good thing, whether you're working out or not. Anyway, muscle performance parameters included torque, power, and strength. These are the things they looked at. How does red light affect torque, power, and strength in human muscle performance? And the results are as follows. Red light therapy before exercise resulted in reduced lactate levels. So there you go. The lactic acid levels are reduced when you shine red light on your muscles before exercise. Increased peak torque. Increased strength, essentially. Increased repetitions by 3.51 repetitions. So not quite as many as last study, but that's a significant number nonetheless. And increased time until exhaustion by 4.01 seconds. Consistent with all studies so far. Next section we're going to look at is on muscle damage. Can red light therapy inhibit damage to the muscle? In other words, can it prevent injury? And can it make it so that your muscles can last longer? So it kind of has aspects that reach into muscle endurance, because if your muscles don't get damaged, you can obviously use them longer. And it also has implications in injury prevention as well. If red light therapy can reduce the damage to your muscles during exercise, then your chances of getting injured are going to be less. So let's find out. A Brazilian and Norwegian study on pre-exercise performance and post-exercise recovery of 28 high-level soccer athletes occurred in 2016. Since the benefits on performance have already been established, their goal was to find the optimal dose of 810 nanometer wavelength near-infrared light applied to muscle that would give the greatest performance enhancement. LLLT, also known as low-level laser therapy, as discussed before, was applied before eccentric exercise protocol with a cluster of 5 diodes and a dose of either 10, 30, or 50 joules in 6 sites of the quadriceps. So the quadriceps is your front leg muscle, and they divided the high-level soccer athletes into a few groups and applied different doses 10 joules, 30 joules, and 50 joules. Remember that number because they're trying to find which one is best. So now we're really narrowing things down. We know what the light can do. We're going to figure out which one is best at increasing performance and also, like I said, reducing damage to your muscle. And here's a quote from the study. Pre-exercise LLLT, mainly with 50 joule dose, significantly increases performance and improves biochemical markers related to skeletal muscle damage and inflammation. So more than the 10 joule dose, more than the 30 joule dose, the 50 joule dose out of those three doses was the best at increasing performance and reducing skeletal muscle damage and inflammation in the muscle. So takeaways from this study, the summary is as follows. A 50 joule dose of red light is better than 30 and 10 at increasing muscular performance, reducing muscle damage, and reducing inflammation. Now, that is to say, although 50 joules is better than 30 and better than 10, is that the optimal dose? That's the question that begs to be asked. So now we're going to look at a study also looking at muscle damage that used a higher dose than 50. So we can see what's better, 50, 100, 200, or 300. And that's exactly what this next study did, essentially. This one, we are going to look at volleyball players. So another Brazilian study, this one in 2015, a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial, which applied red and near-infrared light to the quadriceps, hamstrings, and triceps of 12 professional volleyball players before official matches to find out if it could prevent muscle damage. These subjects were divided into 4 groups. So one group got no red light therapy treatment, one group got 105 joules applied to their quadriceps, hamstrings, and triceps. Group 2 got 210 joules, and Group 3 got 315 joules. So last study, 50 was better than 10 and 30. How about 100? We don't have anything to directly compare these to the 50, but now we can figure out and kind of narrow things down and figure out what might be best. While the placebo and the 105 joule groups, they wrote, had significant muscle damage as evidenced by significant increases in creatine kinase measured 24 hours after competition. And by the way, creatine kinase is a factor that is elevated in the blood after muscle damage. Anyway, the 210 joule and 315 joule groups had little muscle damage compared to the 105 joule and placebo, and little increases of creatine kinase. And here's a quote suggesting athletes might consider applying LEDT before competition. So in the last study, 50 joules was better than 30 and 10. In this study, 210 joules and 315 joules was better than 105. So it kind of looks to me like a higher dose, as opposed to 50, you might want to go 200 or 300 joules. It might be more beneficial to the decrease in muscle damage and maybe even performance as well. So a higher dose looks like at this point it might be better, but it's nothing set in stone. And the way people treat and the wavelengths, all these things, and the placement of the diodes, it really makes things complicated. So you need to experiment, figure out what works best, but use these as your guide because it looks like 200, 300 joules are better than anything else below it at this point. But maybe 1,000 joules is best. So yeah, like I said, experiment. Anyways, summary for this study, red light therapy benefits on volleyball players is that it can reduce muscle damage. Part 4, we're going to look at injury recovery. Can red light therapy be used if someone does get injured? Can it be used to accelerate recovery? I'm going to guess most professional athletes, especially in the rougher sports like football or hockey, quit because they get an injury. So that is very common. So if they can recover fully and more quickly, that means more time on the field, and it doesn't necessarily mean more money since they sign contracts and they get paid way too much, by the way. For those who are really passionate about their game and don't like sitting on the sidelines, it's an excellent thing to be able to recover quickly. So now we're going to look at that. Can red light therapy help people recover from injuries? There was a review done on this subject in 2014, which looked at 17 studies on the effects of red light therapy on skeletal muscle repair for the treatment of muscle injuries. Here's a quote from that review. The main effects of LLLT were a reduction in the inflammatory processes, the modulation of growth factors and myogenic regulatory factors, and increased angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is the expansion of vascularization in the area of the injury. It's interesting. That's something that's also studied widely in cancer, and it's often feared in cancer. But because of the fact that angiogenesis is an essential component of healing injuries, it gives you kind of an indication of what cancer actually is. When someone's injured angiogenesis occurs. When cancer happens, angiogenesis occurs. It's because cancer is actually an injury. But that's not really widely known yet, but we'll work on that. The studies analyzed demonstrate the positive effects of red light on the muscle repair process. And here's a quote. The findings suggest that LLT is an excellent therapeutic resource for the treatment of skeletal muscle injuries. So there you go. And they actually have these at physiotherapy offices, at some of them. I had physiotherapy on my knee, and they had a low-level laser therapy device there. Although, after the treatment, I came home and used mine, and I'm pretty sure it's a lot better. And a lot cheaper. Those things cost thousands of dollars. Anyway, the summary from this review on the effects of red light on muscle injury is that red light can accelerate recovery from injury. Incredibly applicable and incredibly important for people playing professional sports because they incur injuries all the time. And here we are. This is the final slide. This is the summary. Red light therapy for performance enhancement. No matter which sport or physical activity you engage in, red and near-infrared light therapies can give you a substantial advantage over your competition and take athletic ability to new heights. The only question is whether athletic associations are going to ban it. Although I don't know how they're going to do that because you can get it from sunlight. So it's not like they could measure. Like there's no way of differentiating between the red light that you get from standing in the sun and the red light or near-infrared light you get from standing in front of an at-home red light therapy device. So I don't think they're going to even be able to ban this. So basically, if you're in professional sports or any sports and you're not using this, your potential is significantly greater. So might as well take advantage of this now while most people still don't know about it. You can get some significant performance enhancement, including increased speed, increased strength, increased endurance. Red light therapy can increase your repetitions if you're strength training. RLT can increase your time until exhaustion, and no matter what sport you play. It can reduce your lactic acid, reduce your muscle damage. Red light can reduce your risk of injury, and it can accelerate your recovery. And it can accelerate your recovery if you are injured. How is that for a performance-enhancing substance? Oh, and by the way, over 50,000 studies have been conducted on red light therapy to date, and not a single one has reported a side effect from the therapy. Oh, and by the way, if you are a professional athlete and you're looking to apply red light therapy to your regimen, send us an email by going to EndAllDisease.com/contact, and we will consider sponsoring you. We will hook you up with a free red light therapy device in exchange for a photo and your endorsement of our product if it works for you. And of course, it would be nice to have a testimonial as well. Let us know how it's working and all that. So yeah, just go to EndAllDisease.com/contact. If you enjoyed this presentation, please share it with someone that you love. And if you want to learn more about red light therapy, I have written the most extensive book ever written on red light therapy. It's got over 200 scientific and clinical references, and it also has the practical of how to apply it and how to get the most out of red light therapy, including our 6-step protocol for at-home red light therapy treatment. I've also written 2 books on cancer, one on the cancer industry and one on cancer, the metabolic disease unraveled. If you want to see or get either of these books, go to EndAllDisease.com/books. And if you want to try red light therapy for yourself, we've got the handheld device, Body Light Mini, and Full Body Light for the ultimate red light therapy experience. If you want to check those out, go to EndAllDisease.com/store, and you can start benefiting from red light right away. And for the show notes and to sign up to our mailing list, we'll also give you 3 free ebooks when you sign up, just for signing up, and you'll get all the news and updates from my work before anybody else. Go to EndAllDisease.com/episode 14. I want to thank you again for watching. I hope you got a lot out of this, and I hope it in some way, big or small, it improves your life. We will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.